You said I wasn't frugal, but I'm feeling kind of cheap right now.
I know it's hard.
Yeah, okay. I feel guilty. Like,
see, it's guilt tipping, just like you said.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I was getting my hair done by a woman who was really good, but her prices were
really high.
And I just could not give her the tip. Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all. Let's get into it. Hey, babe. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. How's your day going today?
Busy. Yes. In fact, there are lots of meetings today. So
busy is good. Busy is good.
I'll take it over the alternative.
Right. But, you know, we are getting back on topic, doing what we do. And, you know, coming off the heels of our vacation, you know, some things came up and, you know, we thought it was the best place to bring it to the podcast and talk about it. So
yes. So we talked about our vacation, but we didn't talk about where we might have been a little blindsided. How about that? Is that like, the right word?
Bam! Here comes this truck.
Right. Like we didn't expect the tipping culture to be as pronounced as it was. And so we began talking about it and we were like, "Ooh, let's take this to the podcast," because
I don't think it's just the trip. I think that there is a culture now of tipping everywhere. It's like, you get a tip, you get a tip, you get a tip.
That's right. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching everywhere. And you can't even pay for your food before they're asking, do you want a tip?
Right.
You want to tip them, right?
Right. It's like you can't even process your payment method. Like you got to bypass the tip portion or you have to, you know, do the tip piece of it. And I get it that, you know, post-COVID, things have changed. And even during COVID, you know, when businesses were closed or they didn't have as many customers, I know we kind of felt an inclination to tip at restaurants to kind of help support the business or support the workers that were there, you know, so they could, one, stay open. And two, if that was their source of income, you know, they could support their families. And that was our way of trying to help. But I'm like, golly, I go to Starbucks. They like, yeah, all you do is hand me a drink out the window.
Yeah.
And they're like, tip 10%, 15, 20. I was like, you didn't do anything. You ain't even make the drink.
Well, and I think the other thing is it's the same service, but now we're supposed to tip. Right. And every year that service goes up or every year that coffee goes up or every year, you know, so like salons, hair salons, massage, you know, getting your toes done, just all the like services and you're expected to tip. People cleaning your home. I mean, it is a vast amount of areas where you could potentially be tipping already, but then in the places where you aren't normally tipping, I feel like after COVID, you know, because people had lost jobs or everything was halted and shut down and we weren't in person, there were new places where people were tipping, like takeout. We didn't usually tip before. We didn't get any services. They handing you the bag.
Right.
And so why would we be tipping you? And post-COVID is kind of like expected that we're doing more. And that's the quandary I feel like we're in.
I know you were sharing how there was an Instagram post about a couple that they were, I guess, leaving the house, going on a date. And the closer they got to the door to go out, they started seeing that their costs were going up. It was like
$100 here, $50 here, you know, just and it just started rising as they were about to exit. And they were like, wait a minute. Hold on.
We're going to stay at the house tonight.
Let's turn around and have date night indoors. And that is sometimes how it feels. Like that we're just constantly having to pull out money for every single thing. Like, you know, it's expensive to leave the house.
We want to see you guys win with money and have success, but it's almost like you're going to need a line on your budget for tipping.
Yeah.
So especially if you're traveling overseas, and I think that's a point where we can start there, is that you kind of need to know the environment you're going to and what the culture dictates. And I've always felt like I was a good tipper. I try to be generous towards people, especially when you receive good service. But I was actually a little surprised that when we met our tour guide, he gave us a sheet.
A full page sheet.
Word document broke down by person what the recommendations were.
So your tour guide,
for tipping.
This is the recommended. Your driver, this is the recommended. At every phase, every single phase of the 10-day tour, we had almost what I would say is itinerary of tips. Like, and it was a range. And I just was thinking, wow, like that was uncomfortable, to be quite frank.
The thing I thought was interesting is because we're overseas and we're traveling with people who were from other countries, the exchange rates were different
for different countries.
Countries, yeah. So what we may have been paying for tipping was different than what others may have been tipping. And some of those countries, they didn't have as favorable exchange for the dollar.
Right. And in addition to that, I honestly think, let me just use this word, they're probably cheaper. Like, they don't want to tip as much. And I don't know that it had to do as much with the exchange rate. That's a part of it.
But
look, we all pay.
People can do what they want to do with their money. So
we all paid to be on this tour. And I'm not saying that I liked the whole tipping situation, but I will say, I know what you paid for this tour.
Yeah. But I wonder, as people are listening to this, if they're like, yeah, this tipping is out of control, or it's outrageous, or they're like, yeah, you should be tipping because they work in the service industry. So it'd be interesting to hear from people on their perspectives. But I really think that when you are going and traveling, I want to be a tipper, but it's like, man, it is everywhere.
It's everywhere, and it is something that you actually have to plan for. I feel like that is the miss that we had on our trip, was that we didn't actually plan for it. We did it. We just got the cash and we decided what we wanted to give.
I was like, hold on, I had to go get cash and plan the rest of my tips out.
Yep.
So I didn't spend all my cash.
Exactly.
And I was like, okay, well, let me put this aside and put this aside and this aside. And what I thought and hoped was a good tip, and I hope they received it as such. But a brother had to plan.
Yes. And because there was 4 of us on our tour, like, everything is amplified because it was 4 of us who were...
Now, look, I don't want any haters to start hating, but I was like, I'm not tipping for all 4.
But the coolest thing was to see our daughters get cash out so they could tip themselves. They wanted to show their appreciation. And that's I think the beauty of tipping, is that it does give people a sense, not a full, complete sense, but a sense of their service.
Yeah, their satisfaction, their level of satisfaction.
Right. And so that part, I think, can be beautiful. And I think it was good to witness our daughters.
I think it was cool with them because they were experiencing something and they were taking the fullness of it in and they were enjoying themselves. So they wanted to tip the guides on different, things we were doing and show their appreciation for their knowledge base, or, how thorough they were with, showing us different things that we'd never seen before. So it was kind of cool, but, let's bring it back home to where I literally pull up to Starbucks and they're like, you got to press the tip. And I'm like, well, hold on, man.
Yeah. Or quick service. I just went to a quick service place where we're going down the line. They're just adding things to my bowl. And they walked for 20 seconds and then they handed me my bowl and I checked out. And then at the end it says, before I can use my gift card to pay for it, it says tip amount. And I was like... But this was literally your job. And I'm hopeful. Here's the thing. In service businesses like that, I really hope that the people who are doing that are paid fairly and justly. But I haven't got a clue, because I know waitresses have a very reduced amount that they get paid hourly.
I was about to get into that, because it is different.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the same.
No, I don't
If you
think it
got
is.
somebody who is working at Chipotle or Qdoba and they're making your bowl, and like California, the minimum wage is like $15 or $19 or something like that now. So you can pay, 19, $20 an hour, and then the expectation is to tip on top of that. It's like, well, you kind of getting paid to do a job, and
And I know
tips should
waitresses
be
don't get paid that, but I,
right, but that's different.
Yeah.
When the waitress gets paid, I remember back in the day, it was like a significantly reduced rate because tips were to be the supplement. But I'm accustomed to that, and we talk about seeing things on Instagram. I saw something, and the guy was like, "If I've got to pay before I get my food, no tip." He's like, "But if I get my food and have a whole experience and then pay, that's where you get a tip."
Yeah.
And I was just laughing because I was like, that makes a lot of sense. That's what we're accustomed to, is you go sit down in a restaurant, waiter, waitress comes, takes your order, gets your drinks, brings it back, brings your food, checks on you, whatever they do. And then at the end, they present you with the bill. But they've done service. They've gone back and forth. They've tried to take care of you, opposed to, okay, thank you for coming to Starbucks. Can I take your order? Boom, here's your drink. $3 tip. Like, wait a minute. This is a $12 coffee now.
And that's the other thing. I think it took me a while. I'm gonna be real honest and transparent here. I like massages, and I get my hair done, and I get my nails done.
Right.
And years ago, I'm not saying this is today, but years ago, I went to a private party to get a massage, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm paying her $75, $90 or whatever it is for this massage, and I'm thinking that is great for an hour, or that's great for, you know what I mean? And I struggled because we know that, like, this is your price. And it's also a great hourly wage, let's say. And let's be clear, I know they're not doing 40 hours a week, but it's still, I struggle with, this is an expensive service.
Yeah. You struggle with going above that?
Yes, I struggle to say, okay, so this $90 now turns into $100, and now that's what it is. Or, because that's 10%, barely, that's not even the standard anymore. The standard, people feel like it's 15% to 20%. And I struggle so I'm like, for those services where you're handing a private party the money when I first started using my own money for stuff like that, I was just like, wait a minute.
Well, I'll say the thing about the trip we took, I kind of understood, like, in South Africa, the incomes were lower.
Absolutely.
And, tips really were helpful. So I was less, trepidatious about tipping in that environment.
Sure.
Simply because I knew what the minimum wage was out there and what it was costing me in relation to what it could have been benefiting them. There was a big gap. I was like, well, this isn't really going to impact me, but this could be impactful to them. And so I really feel like when we start talking about this tip culture, I come back to, like, the States, where if we're talking about a restaurant or server like that, I customarily give 20%. But I know that there are things I'm willing to pay for. And I have my threshold.
Yes, let's back up, though. 15 to 20%, but that's with great service.
Yeah.
Let's be clear, because if it was poor service,
I will dock you on that tip.
That's what I'm saying,
right?
Like You're not going they're not going to get 20% if service was subpar. Let's be clear.
Yeah. 20% is, I start with 20%. And if you excellent service, I go above that sometimes. But if the service is terrible, I'm not going to not tip you.
Right. So there's no,
because that's just, I'm not going to be that guy.
But that's at a restaurant.
Right.
So have you ever felt like, on a service, not a restaurant, not where you got food and you know that waitress or waiter have, their regular pay is not the minimum wage, but a different services, like I mentioned, massage. So let's talk about haircuts, or let's talk about you've gotten a pedicure before.
Well, I always tip those people, but
is it 15 to 20%?
I think I give them what I think is appropriate.
What is appropriate?
It might be in that range, because like I think even if I get a pedicure or something, I'm giving like $5 or something.
Right, but a pedicure is probably $35. So
I'm
maybe you're at
actually
15. You're at
I'm giving
15%.
between 15-20%. I think the area where I have missed it, and I apologize to all those people out there, count it to my head and not my heart,
This is the disclaimer here.
but I travel a lot, and I do not routinely like tip the housekeeper.
And okay, so let's talk about that, because
I was like, am I supposed to?
That's the thing.
Am I supposed to?
That is
leave
not
a
something
tip?
I think about. And I remember distinctly being in a different place where they had an envelope. I'm almost certain we were on a vacation. It was out of the country.
Yes, and it was for the housekeeper.
the housekeeping staff. And I was like, "Oh, sure, I'll put some." I was hesitant, but we did put something in it. But that was
I started thinking like, well, okay, if you're on vacation, or even if you're traveling, or you're staying in a hotel, I was like, well, they can't not have housekeepers.
right.
That is a big function of a hotel.
And they can't pay them
like a waitress or waiter. They have to pay them a set
Exactly.
wage. So I was like,
Yes.
okay, so the expectation is that you have a job that you work and you do.
and
you
you are
get
getting
paid.
paid a fair wage, let's say. Let's
Right.
use that term.
So why is it expected that I'm supposed to then tip
And
you
it's supposed
for...
to be clean. It's supposed to be clean.
You know what? I'm going to start asking people for tips. I'm going to say, look, I know you probably had some customers that were terrible today. I want to provide you with an outstanding customer experience.
Chris,
So
if you do
I'm going to
this,
need you to, before I pay, would you like to tip me?
I'm going to pull out my camera and videotape this. Because, dude.
But, or would you like to provide me with a reduced rate for the product? Because I've been an outstanding customer
Oh my
to you
gosh.
today.
The schmoozer has come out.
Isn't that fair though?
How is that fair? Goods and services. So here is me, the business owner.
How is it
fair?
fair?
I'm coming back now because I'm like, hold on a second, because it clearly states how much things cost. So why do you think you're supposed to get a discount just for being courteous and polite?
Okay, so let's flip that around. If I come in, it says how much the good or service costs.
Hey.
Why am I then? You're being paid a fair wage to do a job that you're doing. Why am I then supposed to tip you for doing what you're supposed to do?
This is the great debate.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just interesting. Look, and don't be out there hating, talking about, man, they are cheap. It's like, look, I'm just confused.
Honestly, it is confusion, because the other thing is you don't want to leave a poor impression.
Right.
That's the truth. It really isn't about reputation as much as it is. I don't want you to confuse the fact that I wasn't aware that I was supposed to tip, or that your wages were not up to par. And then now I look like the bad guy.
Look, it's almost guilt tipping. That's what it is, because like when that little prompt comes up, would you, like, I'm good about when they say, would you like to round up, or would you like to donate $1? No. Not always. I mean, I do it sometimes.
No, you said that real fast. Honey.
It
that rolled off your
depends.
tongue as fast as it could.
It depends
You said no.
on what it is. Sometimes the cause, I'm like, no. Sometimes I'm like, yes.
So it sounds like your pet peeve, though, really is with quick service, food, takeout situations. That sounds like your pet peeve.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a pet peeve area, because I feel like I'm being guilted into tipping.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I will put like $1, or I'll put something just because I'm like, well, dang, the prompt come up, and I don't know, I might feel a little bad because I just no tip bypass, and people, I think it's awkward on the other side as well.
It is awkward. I've actually had people in quick service just yesterday for lunch. She was like, just press, bypass and
Right.
go on, and then it'll show you. And I'm like, my lunch, I was thinking this. I was like, just what I purchased for lunch was $17 with all the taxes in it.
Ooh-wee.
And I was bypassing anyway, because I just don't. I don't tip the takeout. I just, count it. Hey, this is where I'm at. But I got something that was a little premium. I didn't get chicken this time. I got steak on my little bowl. And so it costs more. And I'm like, dang, $17. If I'm to
I want to go back to Africa for lunch. Everything.
If I'm it's gonna round up to $20 for lunch. Now it was good.
Look, I'm gonna need you to start coming home and have lunch.
No, seriously. I eat at home. Don't start no stuff.
$20 on lunch.
I eat at home.
You living high off the hog out here. $20 steak lunches.
This coming from the guy who gets his travel meals paid for by the company.
Wait. Stay out my business right now.
Yeah,
okay?
your business.
We talking about you.
Wait a minute. See? Stay out my business.
You're not talking about me right
now. I
want
to go out to eat lunch with someone, a mentee.
I'm going to need you to write that off on Taylor.
On the business.
Business.
You know what? Maybe so.
Write that off on the business so we can, write that off with the tax man.
Yes. But, I just met with a mentee.
I said put on that business.
Right. But I'm like, still, every so often, I only go out, I only go out to eat.
I know. You're not
twice a month.
You're not a big diner.
I'm not. So, but anyway, it's interesting, the quandary that we're in right now, because when it's all said and done, I don't even know if you know this. I added up how much we spend in tips.
Oh no, we talked about it. We talked about that.
No. Do you?
Oh,
did we?
No.
We didn't talk about the tips.
We talked about how much we spent on Ubers.
I'm
and Uber is another thing, because I feel like, you got to tip them too.
You do, but you know what? I tip Uber drivers, and I unless it was
Uber is getting the bigger piece of the pie.
They really are. So when you look at that number on how much your ride is costing, they get less. The driver themselves get less, and they have expenses. This is wear and tear on their vehicle. They got to get gas.
I do tend to tip them.
Yeah.
More favorably. Give them the 5-star rating.
Unless it was a dirty car, and they were an aggressive driver, like, we gonna be good. You don't even have to talk to me. We don't even have to have the same music interest. But if it's stinking there,
but I need
we're not gonna do no 5-star.
I need you Uber drivers to give me my 5 stars.
For what? Oh, as a
passenger, you get rated too. Make sure I get my 5 stars.
Yeah. You're a good passenger.
Yeah, I get in. I don't say anything, or I have good conversation and dialogue, or put your seatbelt on.
But they do need to be tipped. And so it's a lot of different scenarios. It really is. But okay, you want to take a guess? Are we doing this on air?
You didn't already brought it up. So what else are we supposed to do? We won't keep it real with the people. I already know it was part of a budget line when it comes to tipping.
Yeah.
So I was like, dang, this is... Because I went to the bank and got the tips money.
You did. So how much was it?
It was a couple $100.
$200 to $300?
Yeah. Easily.
Double.
Oh, my goodness. I want a refund. Give me my money back. But no, it was outstanding.
No, I mean, we honestly, the people we were tipping, even though in the very beginning of that trip, when he gave us the list, I was off put. I
took that list, was like,
I know. I folded mine up and put it in my bag, and I was like,
get this out of here, man. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do what the Lord leads me to do.
Mm-hmm. And the Lord gave you that sheet of paper too, so. But when we heard about the culture and how they're, sometimes slighted in their wages,
I was more inclined to just roll with it.
And they were amazing. Yes. Our guides, tour guides, driver, everybody was fabulous. So the truth of the matter is that in the end, although I wasn't prepared and happy about it, I was like, can you get more money out the
Okay.
account?
Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So, who should we be tipping, or
Oh, yeah.
when should we be tipping? And this is one instance where I think we would agree, if you're on vacation, you're having an experience, and people are providing outstanding service, then you should tip them if they're providing a service to you, and tip them commensurate with what you're experiencing. If it's a great service and you feel inclined to do so, tip them generously, you know. But
And I would say do a little research before you go on an international trip, because we kind of know what happens on our soil here. But I think that when we go elsewhere and we're unprepared, it'll throw us off. If we knew that tipping was going to be a large part of, how people operate out there, I think that
right,
we wouldn't have been so off put. We probably would have thanked the guy for the guidelines, because we knew that it was going to be something that we would be expecting. But
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 I know, like, even when we go to the airport, I tend to, if you get the porter that helps you with the bags, I tend to tip them, like $1 a bag.
well, also, we didn't always have the cash when we needed our bags brought up to our hotel room.
Yeah.
That's a whole thing too. Now that's
That's why I
fairly
was like, hey, leave my
normal.
bag. I got it.
Yeah, but when you realize how much it happens,
Yeah.
you got to have cash on hand, be it in the local currency or
You
if
got
you're
to be
stateside.
prepared.
Yeah, you do have to be
But
prepared.
where else would you say is appropriate to tip?
On a vacation or
Or no,
just
just
in
in general.
life?
Just traditional. Let's look more like traditional settings.
I think we always have to think about it in service-based um service-based jobs.
Like waitresses, waiters.
Right, but there's something to think about when you have somebody cleaning your home, right? Holiday holiday cash, you know what I mean? A holiday bonus or landscaping, or I mean, these are
Well,
service-based
that's a little different
services.
though.
How is
Like,
it?
it's a little different if I'm doing this like once a year.
But see, some people tip every time they get their house clean.
Well,
It's a question. I'm not giving answers. I'm
I
just
mean, we
bringing up
don't
more
get our house
questions.
clean. We do the cleaning.
We used to have somebody clean
Yeah,
our
but I was
house.
like, this is already expensive. Don't expect no tips from
And
me.
that's what I'm saying. So here's the thing.
You said I wasn't frugal, but I'm feeling kind of cheap right now.
I know it's hard.
Yeah, I
Okay,
feel guilty. Like,
see, it's guilt tipping, just like you said. So
yeah,
here's the thing. I was getting my hair done by a woman who was really good, but her prices were
really
high.
high.
And I just could not give her the tip. I could
Yeah.
not do it. I was like, and this is the other thing. The question we then have to ask ourselves, should we be doing the service if we don't want to tip? That's what I'm
Well,
that's what
hold
I'm now.
on though.
Hold on. I'm asking the question of myself. And so then I ended up going to someone who's a little less expensive, quite a bit less expensive. And now tipping is not a problem. And I even told her, I was like, you probably ought to increase your prices. Like I said that to her. But I feel good about a tip with her versus the other person. I was like,
Yeah.
ah.
But I bet that they would rather you come to them and pay the higher price and not get a tip than to not come at all. Because
Sure.
then 100% of something is better than 0%, 100% of nothing.
That's true.
So,
But I think that the amount of the service is what has caused me to pause.
yeah.
So, like I said, when I first started paying for a massage, and what's interesting is I don't have a massage membership now, but when I did have a membership somewhere, I was more prone to tip because I knew that massage therapist wasn't getting the
Right.
entire
You knew
amount that I
you
was
knew
paying.
the service rate had been a little reduced.
Yeah, and so, but when I
Yeah.
was doing private party is when I felt some kind of way about that $100, and I just think it's a quandary.
I think that no matter what the instance is, if it's a service-based industry, or I mean, all of it is service based because that's why you're tipping someone because they're providing a service, they're doing something
They're handing you a
for
bag
you.
or your Starbucks.
Yeah, I think you have to just, follow your inclination. And if you feel inclined to tip, be free to go forth and tip. And I know for me, I choose the more traditional formats when it's sit down service or it's something where going into it, this is kind of a tip expectation. And when I'm traveling on vacation, I'm usually like free flowing, feeling good, relaxed.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, tip. Oh yeah, boom. Here's a tip. Or
Yes.
yeah, boom. Here's a tip.
Because I was
They just
calling
catch
you.
me. They just catch me at the right moment.
Right, because you're on vacation. I was calling you Daddy Warbucks.
Right, because I was just feeling good. I was like feeling myself.
But the other piece of this that I said to you when we were discussing people being cheap about the tip, because I feel like we're somewhere in between. Like we know when to be generous, and then there are times when we kind of are challenged with the
I think
tip.
it's sometimes the principle of it that challenges me.
Yeah.
And makes me pull back because I was like, this is not a tipping situation.
Yeah. But when people were being cheap, I was thinking about, now I know how much you paid for this trip.
Yeah.
So these tips are not anywhere close to what this tour costs.
You were like, you can afford this trip, so go ahead on and give these people a little something on the tip side.
Yes. And I feel like for me, the lesson learned is when I'm budgeting or even helping somebody else with their plan and they're going on a trip of that size or of that nature, just out of the country, and it's relaxing, or even a cruise or even an all-inclusive spot, like you're going to tip. So budget for it. So don't just budget for your travel and your food and your fun,
and not budget for the tip piece.
And not budget for the tip. And that's the thing.
So let's talk about how we make it worth it, because I don't know, people. I was literally just confused on like, man, why are they asking for a tip right now in certain situations? So I think my make it worth it is in those traditional or conventional tipping environments. We all know what the standard is. If it's sit down restaurant dining, 15-20% is what the expectation is. If you feel like you got, excellent service and you want to show your appreciation, follow your heart, and tip in that way. And on the other side, if you feel like, wait a minute, why are they asking for a tip? Or you feel like this is an unconventional situation, then don't feel like you have to be guilted into tipping. And then just do what you want to do. But I'm not going to be guilted, because then I don't feel like I'm giving from the right motivation anyway.
Yeah.
Even though people are not going to turn that money down. They're going to take what it is.
They really are. And I would even say to reduce the guilt is just plan. Think about it ahead of time, right? So if it makes sense, add that extra $5, $10 or whatever.
You know what? I'm about to go to Starbucks just so I can see the tip prompt come up and be like, no.
You know what? See? He's problematic. This is a problem. You just trying to be antagonistic, or what is it? You just trying to make trouble. That's not nice.
That's no, I just feel like that's not a tipping situation.
You just want to,
right.
That's mean.
But you know what? What's funny is I say no on that, and then because I usually carry cash, I still like reach in my pocket and put a buck or something in the tip jar.
I actually kind of like the tip jar. I
would prefer the tip jar be there than to have a prompt every time.
So I think that's
because that's passive tipping, and I can do it at my leisure, versus active tipping. At every transaction, it asks me this question.
But you got to think about it from the business side. Not many people carry cash like that.
I know.
And so they're not going to get as much in the tip jar as they will when it's prompted by the hundreds of customers that come in. Even if everybody just did $1,
the tips are going
to exceed what's in that tip jar.
Well, I prefer the passive method.
I know.
Versus this active method.
But this is another thing to think about when we're talking about it. On that note is, it's best to tip in cash because it goes straight into the
Yep.
hands of the people versus having to go through the system.
And it's
And
reduced.
it's reduced by a
Yep.
percentage of the house, right? And so I think the
Now,
other
we do
part
practice that
we do
pretty regularly.
when I try really hard to make sure that where I know I'm going to tip, I do it in cash, even if I pay for the service with my card, and then
we
I
typically
tip
will
with the
tip
cash.
in cash like that.
No matter where we go, we try and do
Yeah.
that at restaurants and things like that because then it goes straight into the hands of the person that I want it to have, and I want them to have all of it.
Right.
I don't
no
want it
processing fees.
Yes,
None of
yes,
that. So
that part. So
let's what's your make it worth
that's
it for
it.
this?
That was it.
Okay.
That's my make it worth it. Just, plan for it and use
Look,
cash.
this was an interesting talk because I still think we're walking away a little confused.
I have more
each.
questions than answers. That's
Yeah.
the truth. But
I'd be curious on what your experience is out there. If you
Yeah.
feel the way we feel, or if you just you just do it. But
honestly, life is expensive. And how about this? This is why we got to get out of debt. So we get to actually have a vibrant conversation about tipping because we're in positions where we can go out to eat and we can have the services and we can go on vacation and we are in the position where we need to think about tipping. Because if we couldn't do any of those things, if we were strapped for money, right? Those would be definitely the things that we would
that's what
reduce.
you would cut.
That's what you would cut. So the honest truth is, be thankful.
Right.
that you
Maybe
you
that's
can
not
tip.
maybe that's not the situation that some people are encountering because they are loud budgeting and they are not dining out. So they're like
Right.
tipping. You all talking about tipping. I'm not dining out.
Let's
I'm
be
not
honest.
worried about no tips.
I'm gonna be honest. Okay, I don't care where people are on their debt-free journey.
People dining out.
Every single person who is listening or watching this podcast has experienced a tipping moment in the last 30 days.
Right.
I don't care if it's restaurants or wherever. A tipping moment.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, look, until next time,
We're out.
Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on forbetterandworth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.